You're listening to The Best of Perry Gauthier, where we remember our friend and leader who was taken from us in this life in December of 2020. It is our hope that his memory lives on in the hundreds and thousands of people who he touched both in and outside of capitals in this country and around the world. We will be sharing interviews that Perry did for radio and television throughout the following weeks. Perry was always prepared to share the good news of Christ and God's love for politicians and people serving in the political realm. In this interview with Nebraska Family Council, Perry discusses the one-way wall of separation of church and state.
The Bible really does have a lot to say about government. Once you see that it's there, you'll see it everywhere because God's holy people are always interacting with the kings of the earth. So really the premise of the class is just to get at the theology of how do God's people interact with good government. What is good government? If it is God's idea, why does it seem so bad? And we touch on different hot topics politically. The class title is Politically Pointed. And so we touch on things like the economy, which is a huge concern to Americans and believers. God's Word has a lot to say about that and inform our minds theologically as citizens and also as a church with a voice into the state, because separation of church and state is not to keep the church out of the state. It's to keep the state out of the church. It's a one-way wall of separation. So we look at things like the economy, like environmentalism, which is huge in our culture today, things like political activism, civil disobedience, war. How about the founding of our country with the Revolutionary War and the Declaration of Independence? So things like that to get people thinking well and rightly about God and government.
Join us next week as Perry explains why governing authority is established by God in his interview with the Epoch Times.